Thank you for inviting me. I'm very glad to be able to present our project, which is called Next Hamburg. We have talked about the need by the citizens for more direct democracy before, but this is, of course, one part of why Next Hamburg became what it is now. And, of course, it led to a lot of miscommunication instead of people really communicating politics and citizens together. And also the new phenomena that in the internet today, we don't just consume, but we interact and we add part of our own into the internet. Through, for example, multi-authorship or crowdsourcing as we do it, or the open innovation development. For example, Chibo, which is a company in Germany that sells all kinds of products in stores all over the country. They have a normal website where you can just buy the products, basically, but they also have Chibo ideas, where people can, that's just an example for how the system works, can introduce their own ideas or solutions for problems they have in the household, for example, with products they made up. And they can also introduce tasks and also participate in a contest, and whoever wins, which depends on the community, if they support the idea or not, gets a share of their product, which is produced and also contributed by Chibo, and this works really well. This is just an example for how that type of participation can work. We've talked about that people need to add their ideas or share their ideas with the public and with the government, of course. There's lots of different programs like the My Society organization in England, for example. We also have an infrastructure marker in Germany, in Brandenburg, which kind of works like the Fix My Street thing in England. It's not as popular, of course, but it's a start. And this is yeah, let's skip that. But is it really democracy, what we have now, or I think we have mentioned it before as well. Next Hamburg, let's come to Next Hamburg. We are basically doing crowdsourcing of ideas from citizens in the urban development, which means that we, in the first place, give those ideas space to grow and to be discussed, and also some protective space. Because the first thing that happens usually when you have an idea about urban development, and you come up to, you meet a politician and you say, oh, I think you should really change this because I live close by and I know exactly what the problem is at that street, for example, or with that building. They would say, yeah, that's cool, that's nice, I'll see you later. And most of the time they're talking to the wrong person or they're not taking seriously. And this is what we're trying to give them first. The next step is to what we're doing right now, to unite all those ideas. Now we call them problems and solutions for Hamburg, or for the future of Hamburg, in one agenda made by citizens. We're going to publish it as a book that comes later, to make it easier to introduce those ideas into public discussions and debates. Oh, there's one. Yes, and of course we're trying to connect people on the webpage, but also on different events that we have, to initiate their programs or projects that came up because they were just discussing their ideas with other people and developing them. Next Hamburg started in 2009. There were lots of people that seemed to want to support the idea of a shared space like this one for politics as well for citizens, as we were talking before, somebody mentioned it. And then we get financial support by the state, which ended basically now, but that was part of the deal. And we had, now we have quite some partners, like some foundations here in Hamburg and the museum that have helped us with certain events as well. And this is basically how we work. In the beginning, we started collecting ideas and opinions, desires, fears, whatever, from citizens in a first event in 2009, I think it was in April, And we edited them. We didn't like edit them as in change, but we added some useful information on the topic, so it was easier to discuss those problems. And there was one part of deepening them. Then those elaborated idea and topics that started to form themselves started to connect people because they started discussing them more and more. And they had the ability of voting them on the webpage, but also on different occasions. And we had top ideas that were discussed mostly, that were brought forward by the inspirers, as we call them, and professionalized on 2 other events, which we called Session 2 and Session 3. And they ended up in an agenda which was called Next City, a paper for the city center of Hamburg, pretty much. And it was a topic that the people have chosen themselves, so it made obvious that they can also handle complex topics which, they're not just caring about, what happens right next door, but they can also think about more complex details and develop them. Yes. We've been testing different formats and tools to motivate as many people as possible to participate in, making up ideas for urban development. And we also established a certain brand, as you can see, black and yellow, or white and black. If you look at the webpage, it makes it more clear. It's kind of difficult to explain that now. But it's supposed to show that it's fun to get involved in those matters and to change your city, which sometimes seems complicated, or it's like, I have to invest so much time. And we're trying to give professionalized tools to participate, so it makes it easier for people, such as those added information or idea speed dating and different tools that we have at events for people to participate easier. Yes, and of course we're trying to bring the ideas that are discussed mostly forward in discussions and position them out there in the area of political discussions. And we have made up a community, which is quite big now. This is an example for one of our events. I think it was session number 2, yes? People were having lots of fun. That's an example for the idea speed dating. So what happens is people come up they have about a minute where they have to share their idea on a certain topic or to explain to the one across, and then the other one explains their idea in a very short time, and then they have to switch. That makes it a lot more easier to interact afterwards in the workshop and to lower the border that people sometimes have. You're kind of, should I talk now, or who am I talking to? And it makes interaction a lot more easier and to get into the topic. Of course, it's important at those events to make them comfortable, to make it nice and convenient. So we always have good music, we have a nice place to sit, we have some good food. We have an app where you can basically walk through the city and take a picture and say, I like this spot, this should stay here, or you should rip this off and put something else here. Basically, favorite spots and worse. We were on TV. Yes, Your Place, for example, is a participation project, a special project we did together with the International Construction Ausstellung, exhibition, thank you, Hamburg, the IBA, which is basically young people planning an area in Wilhelmsburg, and they decided to make a park, and they made surveys with people that live around, and they really came up with really good ideas for a park, which is going to be realized next year. We have already put up a bank and started everything, but after the EGS, they can start. Those are some of the kids. Yes, our community is growing. We're social media. We're working, of course, with Facebook, with Twitter, Google+, etc. Which is interesting that, of course, we have our own internet webpage, but very recent topics that are discussed in politics are mostly discussed on our on Facebook, on our profile as well as on the page, which is kind of interesting because, yeah, it's a shorter way, so I guess people like to interact there more. Of course, now we have more than 700 discussions on different topics. Our map looks different now, but it has developed. And this is, for example, is an idea for the dome on the other side, on the southern part of the Elbe, from one of our community members. And they have had tons of ideas, which came into our first future study, what we call it, the Next City paper, that had been published, an e-paper. Here you can see some pictures. And in the third session, they were working on a big model. And you can see my colleagues don't like that picture because people look so tired, but they had been working all day, so I guess they can look tired. And they were very involved. Yes, and as had been discussed before, I'm already finishing. Which is very, very important. Any kind of participation process is to have a goal. You have to have a certain promise. You cannot tell people, oh yeah, we want you to participate because, I don't know, it looks good or whatever. You need to promise them something. Your participation, your involvement can actually change something in some way. And of course, while you are organizing that process, you need to have a certain dramaturgy, which is, yeah, you should come to one of our sessions, then I can show you better. And of course, online and offline is very, you have to use both ways in order to make people participate, because one goes deeper, but the other one has a broader, goes broader. And other things, yes, and in the future, of course, we want to not just make an agenda for citizens, but also build a crowdfunding channel for the mostly discussed ideas, so people get more motivated, hopefully, to come up with projects themselves. This I have explained before, kind of. The city vision we're working on, screenshot of our page where you can build your own vision. Some topics. And this was our very, very last session, basically. It was 1 week, the Future Camp in February. In the city center, there were about 2,000 people coming up with tons of ideas and visions. And as you can see on the left, that's a lot of visions they left there for the city of Hamburg. And we didn't expect that many people to bring them. In the end, they were all falling off the wall because we didn't have any more space. And those are, yes. We hope that Next Hamburg is going to be in next every city soon.